Recently, New Age culture became widespread and gained legitimacy in the Israeli society as well as worldwide. New Age culture is characterized in researches usually as spiritual but not religious. Even though this is not an unequivocal or clear distinction, some aspects are tagged as spiritual as opposed to religious or traditional. First, the spirituality sharply criticizes the traditional religious establishments. It expresses discomfort from their political involvement, the ways they enforce their rules and social codes, their hierarchical structure, their subjugation of individuals, their claim for exclusive truth, or their hostility towards other religions, their traditional conservatism, their dogmatic ideas, their strict and non-reflective regulation of practices that turn from means into ends, etc. Secondly, the religious emphasis on a transcendent God that should be obeyed according to the demands of the tradition that mediates him. All this is replaced with a spiritual emphasis on life and the immanent divine within it. The turn to what Paul Hillas called spiritualities of life is expressed with an emphasis on the individual, an intimate connection with the sacred, truth based on personal experiences, inner psychological quests, etc. Accordingly, the new spirituality calls for and strives to empower the individual or the self as a central authority and as a source of knowledge, seizing the incredible potential in each and every one of us. Furthermore, the new spirituality expresses a perennialistic approach according to which all religions and cultures have a kernel of truth, which can be searched out and exposed, among other ways, by finding similarities between the different religions. I will not go into all the differences and meanings of this distinction, but one should note the deep cultural revolution that the distinction between religious and spiritual causes, and the New Age culture being the center of these events. The critical distinction between religious and spiritual but not religious is not prevalent in research and public discourse on Jewish identity. When scholars speak of new Jewish spirituality, they don't mean the kind of spirituality I describe, but various kinds of this religious category. Thus, talking of a Jewish spirituality which is not religious is a new idea based on a fertile distinction between at least two kinds of Jewish spirituality that are markedly different. I would like today to describe a variety of Jewish phenomena that appear in the intersection between the Israeli and the New Age culture, as can be surmised from the initial guidelines specified before. These phenomena are mostly not religious and do not appear in religious context, especially not the Orthodox ones. Nevertheless, secularism also is in the right category for those phenomena which tend to be spiritual. The academic discourse about the current spiritual revival dealt until now with traditional spirituality, new spiritual religiosity, or spirituality from the Anglo-Saxon source, especially North American one, but the ways in which the current Jewish developments have been examined so far did not lead to New Age scenes, and thus fascinating and significant phenomena have been missed. These phenomena are a radical and surprising link in the constantly renewing Jewish tradition. In my survey of the different phenomena that emerge in the junction of Israeli Judaism and New Age, we shall discover the relative marginality of the religious and/or Anglo-Saxon phenomena. It will also become clear that the accepted distinctions in Israeli society between the secular and traditional religious lose their power and meaning when we wish to understand the multitude of spiritual phenomena. Before surveying the phenomena, I should remark that New Age spirituality in Israel is usually an embodiment of the global spirituality, so it's very similar to its counterparts all over the world, as we saw yesterday. Even so, there are definitely Israeli New Age phenomena with unique local characteristics. Today I will discuss these Israeli Jewish phenomena, so naturally I will focus on the local New Age. That is, as I said, only a small portion of the New Age phenomena in Israel. I will now present 10 types 10 types that embody new kinds of Jewish, especially Israeli Jewish spiritual expressions and phenomena. The types are not organized on an axis, they don't create a homogeneous typology, and are not equal in size, but they do allow me to demonstrate the doctrines, practices, groups, and new artifacts of New Age Judaism. The first two types I will describe have been around relatively longer and tend to be relatively religious, even Orthodox, and they are originally Anglo-Saxon or both. In light of my introduction, it will be understood why these two types are more known in the public and academic discourse as opposed to the other ones. First type, Kabbalistic doctrines based upon the Ashlag school. There are a few groups who claim to be the successors of the Kabbalist Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag. Rabbi Ashlag himself worked to distribute his teachings among the Jewish public, especially among the secular Jews in Israel, till his death in 1954. Ashlag doctrine emphasizes a tension that rules the creation between giving or influence and accepting or passiveness. The most famous group that can be classified under this type is the Kabbalah Center, headed by Rabbi Schragoberg, who lives in the US and runs a chain of chapters all over the world. The Israeli chapter offers the public, among other things, lectures and courses in Kabbalah, community events on Sabbath and field trips, kindergarten in the spirit of Kabbalah, books and various products. Even though the administrators and teachers of the phenomena that belong to this type are Orthodox, the studies and participation in activities are not conditioned on changing the student's lifestyle and are backed, as Jonathan Meir has shown, by an ideology of exposure and distribution of the secrets of Kabbalah. Second type, Neo-Hasidism and Jewish renewal. The central source of Neo-Hasidism is in the Jewish-American encounter with counterculture in the 60s, a meeting that brought about the Chavurah movement and the Jewish renewal movement that we heard of yesterday from Chava Weissler. The hippie Hasid image who grew out of the need to preserve Jewish identity and the desire to prevent assimilation speeded up renovations in Jewish culture, ranging from dressing and cooking style to emphasizing new values such as women's rights, sexual liberation, a positive attitude toward Gentiles, etc., as Kobe Ariel shows. The Neo-Hasidic type in Israel is divided into two groups. One is radically liberal, while the other one is more conservative. In the conservative group, we can find, for instance, many of the Breslov Hasidic activists and Ascent Center in Tzfat. Their New Age flavor is revealed in their emphasis on religious experiences, the abundance of teachings that combine Judaism and Far Eastern doctrines, adoption of different issues from the Western spirituality discourse, etc. The other group resembles the American Jewish renewal movement and contains two prominent subgroups of adherents and students of two rabbis, Rabbi Yoad Ezrahi and Rabbi Mordechai Gafni. Their New Agey character is expressed by their emphasis on the sacredness of sexuality, their willingness to accept dramatic updates to halakha, their criticism of the religious establishments, their deep interest in investigating similarities to other religions, their teachings of Jewish texts intertwined with Western modern theories prevalent in the global New Age, etc. Even so, the leadership of these groups, being rabbinical, brings about certain differences between this type and other types that I shall describe. Third type, alternative calendar and commentaries. This type may gradually become a substitute of well-established traditional practices in Judaism, and thus it reflects a phenomenon similar to the one Paul Hillas and Linda Woodhead already described regarding the British society, a gradual but salient lessening of presence in established prayer sites of institutional religions, and simultaneously growing population of alternative spiritual and holistic centers. This interpretive context places these phenomena outside the boundaries of religious establishment and the Orthodox context, so that this type and all the following ones, unlike the first two, are included in the phenomena that were missed by most of the academic discourse. Alternative ceremonies welcoming the Sabbath are often performed in New Age centers that have no Jewish emphasis in their day-to-day activities. These ceremonies include mostly spiritual chanting that combines live performances, sing-along, and spontaneous dancing. The sacred chanting is described in the Amic discourse as a provider of mystical experience or ecstasy. In addition, there are spiritual events that take place during weekends and holidays. These events fill sacred time in the Jewish calendar with spiritual meaning, but the substance attached to these holidays is not based on the traditional practices. The major New Age festivals in Israel are always held during Jewish holidays, when Israelis usually have vacations. Along with the alternative celebration of Jewish calendar, there are holidays from other sources integrated in the calendar that go through spiritual interpretation. These alternative events fit with the various description of the spiritual but not religious. By their very nature, these events are based almost always on practices not fitting with the Orthodox halachic observance of the Sabbath. Traveling by car, lighting fire, using a microphone, paying, and so on. They offer different spiritual content to familiar holidays. Ceremonies welcoming the Sabbath usually don't include prayer books, wine, challah bread, and the lighting of candles. The purpose is ecstatic experiential, not scholastic or halachic. The sociological character of the audience of these events is also clearly different from those who celebrate in synagogues. I include in this spiritual type commentaries on Jewish scriptures. Typically, these texts offer inner understanding of Torah stories as messages about spiritual tests or evolution, Jungian analysis or feminist criticism, Buddhist commentary on the Bible, suggestions for spiritual practices derived from the text, and so on. Fourth type, channeling of Jewish teachings and entities. Channeling is a new kind of epiphany that is prevalent in global New Age spirituality. In Israel, channeling occasionally carries Jewish Israeli characteristics, especially in three dimensions: the addressees of the content itself, or the channeled entities. For instance, Mira Cohen and Daniel Noel publish messages from Isaac Luria, Yonatan Ben Oziel, and others on a website called Messages from the Valley. The sites explain that Eliyahu the prophet is the spiritual teacher known also as Metatron and Jesus. Tikva Avraham explains in channelings from entities of love and light the spiritual reason for the chosen people being attacked by terrorists, and why is the tikkun that Jews and Arabs as descendants of Ishmael and Isaac have to go through. Channeling is a creative and fertile way in which Israeli Jewish content is created and molded in an original New Age spirit. This is a common way in which the new ideas are expressed, new practices are experienced, and new meanings are given to different local customs in the field, while giving a seal of approval from a higher authority, similar to the one revelation-based religions. Fifth type, Jewish or Hebrew shamanism, paganism, magic, and ecofeminism. Though this is a very diverse type, almost all phenomena within it focus on a couple of entities reflected in each other: femininity and nature. According to the ecofeminist logic, Mother Earth is the embodiment of the archetype of the feminine body, and therefore the admiration is lavished upon both the feminine body and nature. Femininity is revered even to the point of being godlike. Her body and sexuality and any quality that is perceived as feminine. This spiritual type invokes different feminine divinities, and in Jewish contexts, Shekhinah and Lilith are prevalent. It is interesting to point out that one of the most important leaders and pioneers of the Western witchcraft revolution is the Jewish American witch Starhawk. According to her, the older she gets, her Jewish identity and pagan one are mutually strengthened. For instance, when she celebrates both Hanukkah and the winter solstice. Another spiritual teacher that belongs to this type is Rabbi Gershon Winkler from California, that blends and parallels Native American beliefs and Jewish traditions, and sometimes come to Israel to teach. Some Israeli neo-pagans are interested in Canaanite shamanism, while others combine Native American traditions, ancient Egyptian, Wiccan, and Jewish ones. An Israeli example of this type is Samuel Shaul, that defines himself as a Hebrew-Egyptian shaman. In a column of a New Age magazine, he exposed the locations and unique qualities of the chakras across the lands of Israel, and wrote on his healing journey to them. Virtually, New Age in Israel forms an alternative sacred geography by marking sacred established sites, Jewish and non-Jewish ones, as well as new energetic ones. One of the most prominent new sites is Ruah-Midbar, sometimes compared to Stone Age. Sixth type, Jewish New Age syncretistic schools. Expectedly, the perennial philosophy of New Age encourages syncretistic approaches. This type includes people who see themselves as Jewish, who integrate in their consciousness and way of life at least one more religious identity. In all these combinations, New Age characteristics are evident, since the chosen elements, the interpretations attached to them, and the ways they are understood and practiced take shape in the spirit of the current spiritual culture. Examples are found in methods such as Jewish Reiki or Hebrew Yoga, a mixture between earth-based traditions and Judaism, etc. A very prevalent combination is between Judaism and Far Eastern cultures, which serve as a meaningful other in the New Age culture, as was shown by Olaf Hammer. The New Age encompasses two opposing attitudes towards established religious traditions, as Wouter Hanegraaff pointed out in his book, either approval of all religions or rejection of all of them. But both attitudes show up in the syncretistic type. Thus, for instance, the Israeli spiritual teacher Shai Tubali announced in a channeling from the Buddha of Orion of his divine plan to abolish all the old religions and replace them with a new cosmic or galactic religion. He explains that between Moses and Jesus there was no contradiction, but a cooperation that was aimed at advancing humanity. The spiritual journey came to the wanted fruition, and further advancement is needed, a combination between Jesus' teachings and Buddha's ones. He explained why Judaism was created from the outset for the spiritual evolution, and why at this point Judaism is redundant. Seventh type, New Jewish Theoretical Systems. New theories in Jewish New Age spirituality almost always deal with knowledge about the physical and spiritual universe, cosmology, and about the human mind, psychology. Thus, for instance, Yemima Vital, who was a religious spiritual known guru, taught a method which essence was conscious thinking teaching, and focuses on introspection. In contrast, a spiritual cosmological theory was channeled a few years ago by Dror Drobnik, sitting bear from yesterday night ceremony, including knowledge of the eight skies and known entities from Kabbalistic traditions. Some of the theoretical systems aren't so new and are in fact implementations of modern Western methods on Jewish tradition, such as new spiritual commentaries to the Bible and that reconstruct Erich von Däniken's thesis about the involvement of aliens in human history. A-type, soul-body oriented Jewish practices. The holistic approach of the New Age strives to treat body and soul as one. Physical health in the eyes of New Agers symbolizes a spiritual virtue, and healing symbolizes redemption. In this frame of mind, New Age practices are shaped, aimed at spiritual experiences, healing, and a healthy and right lifestyle. This includes meditation, martial arts, shiatsu, etc. Soul-body practices are also being converted to Judaism by identifying their Jewish origin or offering a Jewish version of them. Thus, for instance, among the many yoga methods prevalent in the world, there can be found a few Jewish ones, such as the Aleph Bet Yoga of Fanim and Torah Yoga, as Celia Rothenberg showed. Other examples for this spiritual type of soul body are Jewish New Age healing methods. Thus, for instance, a college of health according to the wisdom of Kabbalah named Achlama was founded by Rabbi Eliyahu Azrad, who has experienced an illumination in California and developed different kinds of spiritual healing methods: Kabbalistic Shiatsu, Kabbalistic Tai Chi, Shofar healing, etc. An educational therapeutic method was developed by Dani Lusky based on Sefer Yetzirah and is taught in the college he founded. It offers an integrated medicine through the 32 intelligences of the old Kabbalistic book. Ninth type, Jewish spiritual consultation. The type of spiritual consultation focuses on behavioral and cognitive aspects, relationships, achievements and failures in one's life, etc. Prevalent methods that are included in this type are numerology, past life therapy, reading auras, etc. Most of the counselors have eclectic training and some have developed their own unique methods. For example, Netanel Magar offers consultation in different methods through the through the Tree of Life, Universal and Jewish numerology, and further tools of the New Age. Magar channels the entity Neria. Her inquiries about the healing power of letters helped her to develop a unique therapy method, the Light of the One, that has to do with the Creator's energy consciousness and is based on ancient knowledge combined with the knowledge of the New Age. Magar's spiritual psychotherapy combines, according to her site, Western psychology, Eastern philosophy, and the wisdom of Kabbalah. 10th type, the New Jewish ritual objects, Tashmishei Kedusha. This group includes phenomena different from those described up until now because since it does not focus on people or doctrines, but on artifacts. One can of course include in this type traditional religious Jewish objects that have been redesigned or reused in new ways in the Jewish alternative spirituality, but it is more interesting to point out the prevalence of new ritual objects. Among those are Jewish-like cards that are used for counseling, diagnosing, and therapy. These cards are based on stories of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, on paths in the Tree of the Spheres, the 72 names of God, etc. This type include also essences of Israeli flowers, pendants with talismans from Solomon's seal, shirts with sacred combinations of Hebrew letters, etc. As aforesaid, the division into spiritual types is meant to explain the various phenomena rather than represent an actual division at the field. The advantage of the typology is in the initial picture that is grasped through this description as to the large scale of growth in Jewish phenomena that evade the public discourse about Jewish identity. Thus, even though every holiday in Israel is marked with the erection of cities and villages for the celebration of festivals that are in fact an alternative Israeli geography, the Orthodox establishment has yet to denounce this New Agey attempt to reclaim or reappropriate Judaism and its symbols. The fact that these new events emerge in a space conceived as secular and outside the institutional site allows the rabbinate and the public and academic discourses to ignore this widespread and effervescent phenomenon of new Jewish Israeli spirituality. This survey of spiritual types pointed in a very preliminary fashion at the new emphasis, contents, and ideals of new spiritual phenomena created these days. For instance, one can find explanations for terrorist attacks against Israel not from scholars researching the Middle East, nor by military personnel or by rabbis, but explanations that are spiritual but not religious. New values are emphasized once and again within this alternative Judaism, fitting with the spirit of New Age. Among these values are affinity with nature, a positive stance toward sexuality and admiration of femininity, an emphasis on the inner world and a deep interest in health and healing, a criticism of establishments, religious ones and others, the empowerment of the individual, and interest in other religions, especially the Far Eastern ones, etc. Moreover, the new Jewish phenomena express an attempt to settle the unique status of the Jewish people with an avoidance of a sense of supremacy, inferiority, or competitiveness toward other cultures and religions. It seems that the unique combination between a global spirituality, the New Age, and local unique character is typical to this local phenomena. Among the Israeli alternative spirituality, one can find two different trends in relation to the Jewish tradition: rejection or indifference on the one hand, and adoption on the other hand. And here I focused on the positive trend. Time will tell which trend will become stronger. In any event, it seems that new Jewish identity is emerging. This tradition is by all means invented, and no doubt that many don't see it as Judaism and dispute its authenticity and legitimacy. Even so, it is important to remember that this was the attitude toward any innovation in Jewish history which retrospectively turned into an accepted Jewish phenomenon. Shula Israeli claims similarly, quoting Isaac Luria, whom she channels, "In my days, when I was in a body, only few listened to me, and see what has become of my teaching. Be optimistic, believe in the knowledge you shall receive, and in the power of this faith, the knowledge will be distributed." Thank you.